Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights here with Rich Klein. We're going to talk about Hostess, not the cupcakes, but the cards, but they actually made cupcakes and the cards and put the cards on the back of the cupcake packages and other kinds of Hostess baked goods. I believe they're baked. But thanks sponsors, Topps Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentications. Hostess was a big deal. From 75 to 79, they did do some sets in the 80s, but when people think about Hostess cards, Hostess cupcake cards, Hostess Twinkie cards, they're really talking about 75 through 79, that 5-year run that probably was an entry point for a lot of people in the hobby through the moms going to the grocery stores.
That's also for the kids. If you have a kid, a 10-year-old son or daughter, and actually in those days it was many more sons than daughters, but you have a 10-year-old child and you want to reward them with an occasional treat and they're following baseball, and they can get a baseball card. You're buying them their Hostess Twinkies or their Ding Dongs, and the cards are on the back of the box, or in the Twinkies, they could be at the bottom of the individual Twinkies. So Hostess was a good entry point for a lot of people into the hobby if you're a certain age. Plus, there were certain quirks on some of these Hostess cards. Some were actually tougher than others.
Yeah.
These 6, there are black backs or brown backs on half the set. There's some rookie cards. There's a 78 Eddie Murray. There's a 79 Ozzie Smith. I believe there's a 76 Dennis Eckersley. There's a 75 Robin Yount. I don't believe there's a 75 George Brett, which would have been really cool. But there's enough meat there where you're even getting some really cool early cards of players and even some errors and variations. I think the Lee May card shows Milt May or vice versa. In 75, they're both Mays paying for the Astros, but one was a slightly darker hue of a person than the other one, and they got them wrong before you began your books. And when you were still dealing a lot, and I was just starting to get into the whole thing, Hostess panels were at almost every table.
Anybody could get them, and there were some factory, not leakage, but somebody got a pallet, perhaps. They were folded. They weren't just cut panels. They were complete boxes in some cases. I think in those days, it was almost all about keeping the panel intact or the whole complete box or cutting the panel just right. But I think it's more singles now.
It's much more singles. I think that changed in the 80s and 90s because it was a lot easier to display singles when people like our mutual friends, Gary Sawatsky and Dwayne Schrone, and then later Jim Justice, they would do the Wizards of Odds. You're a player collector. It's a lot easier to transport a single card of Eddie Murray than it is carrying a whole strip of 3 around. And some of the strips, there are 2 cards on one line and the 1 card on the second line. And those are even worse to try to do. So why not sell the cards in an easier way?
This is a self-reveal. When I got some Hostess cards and sent them into ComC, if they're singles, it costs 50 cents to submit it, and then they'll say what it is, and I could put a price on it. But if it's a panel for the 3 cards, or even if it'll be 2-card panel, but any panel that's oversized is now 50 cents plus $3 to submit at the lowest level. And so I would cut them into 3. That's $1.50 to submit the 3, and a player collector could pick the card. And if you're a panel collector, there are panels on there. But it made it easier for me to think, I don't want to submit a panel, but I wasn't the only one doing that.
It makes sense also from ComC viewpoint. It's a lot easier for ComC to do single cards than it is the panels. It fits more with the normal flow of the whole process of a card than doing a panel. The panel of 3, I have to have a whole separate way of storing those cards. I can get the 78 or 79 Eddie Murray card in next to whatever Topps card or Donruss card or Fleer card or whatever. I could put them right next to each other. I have to create a separate place to put the panels.
Okay, but Murray has a 78.
Yes.
Hostess. I'm going to give you a scenario now. So I have a panel that has the Eddie Murray 78. Do I carefully cut it with scissors or professionally cut it? Do I leave it as a panel, or do I try to make it into the 3 singles, one of which is worth more than the others? All the value is in the Eddie Murray.
How good of a shape is the panel, and does BVG grade the panel?
The panel is in mint condition. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no crease.
Does Beckett grade the panel?
I bet they grade panels. Yeah. It fits in the larger holder they have. And
if it fits in the larger holder and it's really super sharp, that's the one case I might say, let's get this graded. It'll also probably, not a lot of items like that are graded. You'll probably actually get more money out of it that way.
Okay, so I'm going to complicate it further. Basically, in this day of Kurt's Card Care and other kinds of really carefully maximizing and optimizing the condition of the card, it's possible if you had this pristine panel and Eddie Murray's in the middle or on the side, whatever, and you carefully cut it, you might even cut it with enough margin that the card next to it is compromised. But you cut it so carefully that it grades a black label 10 for BGS. In other words, it's pristine 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 4 10s. Now you go to the hobby and you say, I have a Pop 1. I have a black label Eddie Murray rookie card. It's 78 Hostess. People don't think it's a big deal if it's not pack pulled. It was available nationally in grocery stores, every grocery store probably. So it's a rookie card and it's a black label 10, 78 Hostess Murray, and it's Pop 1. I want $100,000 for it. You'd get left off the planet.
But then, like, you start the price too high, and then someone says, okay, what do you really want for it?
Would you take 1,000? It might sell for 1,000. And even then, it's a novelty. In the hobby hierarchy, no one says that's a rookie card, even though it's close to standard size. Are they 2 1/4 by 3 1/4?
Yeah, they're just a little smaller. I know COMC uses the term rookie year.
I understand. But other ancillary point to that is that when people make a big deal about, it's got to be a rookie card because it was nationally available, and so what if it wasn't in a pack? You could have found it somewhere. The other rule that I've not emphasized that much, but is part of it, and you understand it because you were there, is that it wasn't just rookie cards should be pack pulled, ideally, but they should be available in local card shops from the point of origin, not secondary. And when you look at that, the Star Company cards, they really weren't available in most card shops.
But in 1975, when Hostess began, you have a Robin Yount rookie. How many card shops are there in the country? 3, 4?
No, there were a lot more than that, but there were still not as many. But again, by the time you get to 78 and 79, there's more. But my point is, pack pulled is also correlated with available in most hobby shops, and not as a secondary thing, but there were distribution through hobby shops, that the hobby shops were not cut out. They weren't disintermediated for people going to a card shop and finding the rookie cards. So that would disqualify Eddie Murray of 78 Hostess.
Don't call it a rookie card. Just say a rookie year card.
You're adopting COMC's reasonable standard. I'm not denying that.
That's a very reasonable standard.
I'm just saying, but there would be people, if somebody had a bunch of them, they wouldn't be saying, hey, it's a rookie. It's an RC. There's no reason for it not to be. And if it was a 10, a gold 10 or a black 10 or a mint card, Hostess cards, how many mint Hostess cards do you see out there? Even nines, because they can be scuffed. There can be some surface scuffing. There can be superficial creasing. They have to be cut perfectly. Do you cut them exactly on the dotted line, or do you cut them slightly outside the dotted line?
And also, those cards were probably handled by kids more than they were by adults.
Even by mobs, they threw them in the shopping cart.
We would look at the stores and we would see in 77, the first 3 strips are all like future Hall of Famers.
But you could pre-screen.
Yeah, we were pre-screening.
So then it also gets into the problem that you have sometimes, and even at COMC, sometimes the better players seem more available than the commons or lesser star because they were more sought after, more collected, more saved.
I agree with you. Here's a contrarian view on submitting cards. You have a 2002 Topps Gold set. You're buying the cards really cheaply of a parallel Topps Gold. They're numbered to 2002. They're actually pretty popular.
Exactly.
The odds are better if you submit a Ruben Mateo gold card, the Rangers prospect that unfortunately got hurt, but he's a common. There will be less Ruben Mateos on COMC, I'm just guessing, than there would be 2002. So there would be less Ruben Mateos than Pedro Martinez. Pedro's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Ruben is not in the Hall of Fame. It may be a tougher sell, low demand, low supply. You actually have a better chance probably of selling the Mateo card than you do the Pedro Martinez card.
Possibly, but still, it's not worth buying for $1.
No, but it may be worth it at a quarter.
But then you get to the 2007 golds or 2010, 2015, as you work your way up. They're almost exactly the same number made, but for what reason they're tougher?
Because there's more hard cards produced. And the more cards produced, then just like the 10,000 elite cards in 91 Donruss, they made so many 91 Donrusses, the 10,000 elite cards you probably would have had made 100,000 elite cards to make them as accessible as
They were case hits, right?
they were case hits.
Why did Hostess stop with the panels? But also in the 80s did some other sets.
As I was starting on the hobby, I thought the peak years for Hostess were really 76, 77. By 78 and 79, it really seemed to be petering out. 79 and 78s are much tougher to find as singles or panels than sixes or sevens. So I think they were hitting diminishing returns. We can say the same thing for Kellogg's. Kellogg's went for 14 years during that time frame, but they found a boatload of 81 Kellogg's eventually. They never really found the same boatload of any of those Hostess things. If you look through dealer stocks, you will always find more 75 to 77 Hostess singles than you do 78 to 9.
I agree. Ironic, though, you're talking about 81 Kellogg's. The 1 year that is super mass produced is the year they thought, oh, great, we're going to make these standard size and everybody's going to love them so we can make 10 times as many of them. No, they were too available. And they probably had a complete set offer, I think, that year too.
Not only that, but they also ran into the strike in the middle of the 81 season, which definitely didn't help either. Anything that could have gone wrong for them in 81, and they still did it a couple more years. You don't know why these companies give up, but I'm sure they were done in corporate meetings on levels far above what you and I are today.
I'm sure there's a licensing arrangement, and it might have been a 5-year term or a 3-year term with 2 years of extensions or something. But they're not just producing it because they feel like it. It may have run its course.
I think in Hostess's case, it really ran its course. You see a lot with 78s and 9s, and they realized it ran its course.
Okay, same thing for any box where you can see what you're buying. Do you think if the groceries are delivered by the distributor or they're put on the shelves on Tuesday, by the next Monday, before they come on their route the next Tuesday, all you're left with are common box panels that all the cards have been taken?
Especially today, if it's known there are cards on the back of the box, I think you would see very few things better than common boxes left on the shelves.
To compare, in the 60s, maybe they learned a lesson that alphabets or the grape nuts, the boxes that were less popular, I don't know that it mattered who was on the back of the large quantity of grape nuts. It's just not going to sell that much.
Do you really want grape nut cereal?
It's high fiber.
Maybe high fiber, but it doesn't sound like it really appeals to kids. And in those days, cards were going to kids.
It's sludge.
I made those. I didn't.
For kids that get in trouble with their mom, if you're not behaving, you're going to have to eat these grape nuts. What is the shelf life of Twinkies?
Forever. I don't think they ever went sour.
I know it's a joke,
but
the thing is, if you put the 75 Twinkie cards, when the 76 season comes up, it's a dead giveaway. This is a year-old Twinkie still sitting there. They have to clean off the shelves.
Those were probably still good, actually, in all seriousness. I'm not joking. I think Twinkies had so much preservatives in them, they were good. They're not going to die from the fact that it sat for a year. My late dear friend, Mike Kushner, in 1982, sold me a 6th and 7th series, top series pack. He says, I will give it to you if you chew the gum.
I've chewed old gum.
You know what? I said, I'm in my early 20s at the time. I don't accept it. Yeah, it was a really good pack. I got a riot out of that pack.
You took the dare. When they put cards in with the candy or the gum, there were standards for the product, for the way it was handled. It wasn't kosher, but there were standards for handling such that the gum had to be kid-friendly.
Yeah.
And kids could have gotten the gum many years later, and nobody's died from stale gum.
That's why I was kiddingly talking about the Pro Set puck. I never remembered the Pro Set puck ever causing any stains for the puck cards, and it was good chocolate.
But basically, you and I are bullish on the 10X aspect of what fanatics want to do, is getting at different ways to attract collectors. Surely, we're both saying the Hostess experiment or that 5-year run was a net very positive for our industry.
Oh, I'm bullish on food related because we talk about not being segregated as a society and everybody going off on their own way. Everybody still has to eat.
Yeah.
So if you're getting cards in food products, you're at least getting to where a lot of people are going to have the same experience. That would be a great way for fanatics to get to 10X, or at least part of the way to 10X.
But do they do it by making it so desirable to collectors? They tell their friends to go buy up a bunch of Hostess products because I want the cards. But then the friend might say, why do you want the cards so much? Well, they're going to be valuable. And I love collecting, and it's my favorite players.
You let the person keep the food. I'll just keep the cards, and I'm paying for your food. There is no such thing as a free lunch, but that's close enough to a free lunch.
You did that. I did that. But that's the definition of a collector. They'd rather have cards than food, perhaps.
We'll get these big billboards. We'll trade food for cards.
Anyway, Rich, reminisce about Hostess cards. It's fun to go down memory lane.
The man in the house of cards.